is that data immutable? The data can be tampered with quite a bit. So from our standpoint, using blockchain was something that was very attractive because we say we have to a highest degree of certainty that our process, our data coming off the reactor, we're very confident. And so let's make it an immutable record. Let's utilize the tools and have proof of trust for the patient. They deserve that.
Hey everyone, welcome to a special episode of the Around the Block podcast. We just got done with the Conv2X Symposium in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I'm also a special guest for today. I normally host the Health Tech to Care podcast, and I'm with here the leaders of the Bright Path team, and we're excited to chat today and dig into what you guys are doing. First, can we just go around and do some quick introductions, starting with yourself, Tony?
Hi, I'm Tony Quinones. I am one of the co-founders of Bright Path.
Hi, I'm Michael Gonzalez. I'm also one of the co-founders of Bright Path.
Hi, I'm Ajaz Hussain. I'm their advisor.
Short and sweet. So, guys, first question I have is, at Bright Path, you're leading a sustainable approach to pharma manufacturing with small molecule generic drugs. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means and what makes your approach unique?
Well, I would definitely say from a sustainable standpoint, that's where Michael caught my attention and vision, going back all the way to 2013, when he was using a technology I had acquired. And when I acquired it, he was giving me a tour of how chemistries could be made in a more sustainable way, lowering the cost, eliminating the harmful effects of a chemistry going into the environment. And I assume, well, if it's harmful going to the environment, it'd be harmful to go inside of a human. So as he described it to me, I remember that day, May 21st, 2013, looking at it and saying that's a data machine. That reactor system, if we attached sensors to this to be able to extract data, we probably could really do something. So at the end of the day, I asked him, what do you suggest we do with this? And he said, start a pharma company. I said to myself, I didn't say it out loud to the group that he had gathered, I know nothing about pharmaceuticals. How on the earth do you expect me to start a pharmaceutical company? And then it went from there. We did.
Yeah, in 2018 we reconnected, but prior to that, my time, I was with EPA Office of Research and Development for 28 years prior to joining Bright Path, and did a tremendous amount of work in the area of green chemistry and green engineering. And when I looked at this reactor technology, it's continuous flow, it's a small footprint, but it has the capability of high process throughput. And when you couple that with efficient chemistry, you can really make seismic changes in the manufacturing of a chemical. Couple that with rewriting the economics of manufacturing, whether it's chemical or pharmaceuticals, because so much cost is ingrained on waste management, purification, waste handling, utilities, and then also just the inefficiency of the chemistry and all the molecules that you pay for and you're disposing. So our approach is performing chemistries that are as clean as possible and utilizing all the molecules that we pay for in our starting materials, and then also managing and minimizing the impurity profile. And we can do that with the continuous flow approach that the STT reactor offers.
It sounds like that's what truly makes it like your focus on small molecule is because of that. It leaves like less of a footprint. Is that the case, or what? For the the audience, like small molecule generic drugs, like for the folks that don't understand what that means, can you break that down a little bit?
Sure.
Well, yeah, I think one of the things that is we've been working through a program called Pharma, and in onshoring our drug manufacturing, the drug substance, the actual part of the molecule that brings your health, called an active pharmaceutical ingredient. Those are primarily made offshore in countries like China and India, Italy, Germany. But there's a very few amount of technologies that are used here in the United States to manufacture small molecules. The interesting thing about our market is that the majority of our drugs that we consume in this country are small molecule drugs and repurposed small molecule drugs. So that's where when we got engaged into the program and we're saying, okay, we have to go through this regulatory process. There's none other than one of the best, because I've been reading his papers, knew about him for years, Ajaz, and his background and everything that he had written was like the aspirations of what it is I wanted to see happen with the company. I've read documents that he had written all the way back in 2008 about where the FDA should orient themselves to, what the industry should orient themselves to be able to track impurity profiles, purity profiles. He has done so much in the industry, but one of those major players at the FDA in the regulatory space and industry that really helped to guide us and hone us in over the last 2 years to say, look, if we're going to onshore drug manufacturing in the United States, you need good guidance. And one of the guys that wrote a lot of the guidance that we're following is none other than Ajaz.
Ajaz, you would like to comment on that? Yeah.
I think, no, I was going to comment more on I was born in Secunderabad, Hyderabad, the area. I grew up in Mumbai. But I did a lot of advising work for a number of API manufacturing in Hyderabad. It's a very big center for API manufacturing. And two most beautiful rivers there, you cannot walk there. It stinks. They have polluted not just the rivers, they have polluted the entire ecosystem. And that's what happens of careless chemistry, doing things in a way that you just have to throw away. Disposal, proper disposal is the responsibility, but it costs. So why not take this example? Do what you need to do and don't create something that you have to throw away. That's the beauty of this.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like that's what attracted you to, advising the personal experience there.
One of my close FDA colleague who was already advising from a legal perspective contacted me, spoke to Tony. I said, this is different. This is different. So technology doesn't attract me anymore. This is old technology from many perspectives. So it's not technology. But are they serious? Are they really going to do this? If they are serious, the intentions is right, then I'm all in because I know how to get there done. We may have hiccups, but we will get there.
The intentionality behind it.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is, just as I'm looking at new ways of developing chemistries utilizing the STT reactor, having read what Ajaz had been writing for a number of years, and then the 2018 FDA guidance on continuous manufacturing also began to stir some of those thinkings that there's a new way of doing this, and continuous flow synthesis is new to the FDA, and they have a lot of questions, but their answer is always refer to the guidance. As long as you follow the guidance, you're good.
It is.
But then also tandeming the information that we can package and show and demonstrate to the FDA, you can do this in a continuous manner and be even more, I'll use the term, tight with your data and the proof that the product that you're making is the product, and we know them. If there is an impurity profile, we know what it is. We know the purity of the API, and it is going away from the current approach, which is batch. So you make step one, you purify, recrystallize, dry, only to solubilize it again to go into step two. You do it again, and you do it again. And what we're demonstrating is that you can do all three steps in a continuous manner and have that profile of your product to be able to say, no, we don't have to do all these individual steps. And this is where you start saving time, energy, materials, because you don't have to do isolation and purification only to solubilize it and put it back into another form.
It automatically by design is built-in assurance. Okay? Getting to a purer 99+% is you already have created an identity and control the impurity in a way that consistently you reproduce. Now, the impurities is often we are satisfied with 95%, 94%, and so forth. But what we don't understand is we have moved towards a chronic disease model. We are taking medicines for year on and so forth. It was not just an acute one-time and so forth, right? So if some of these chemistries are polluting and destroying an ecosystem like the Hyderabad rivers and so forth, can you imagine what's happening in human body? The challenge what we have is we don't see it a signal in the post-marketing surveillance, but it's not seeing a signal doesn't mean it's not there. The challenge what we have is signal to noise ratio. In 2008, I got again involved with FDA. I was with Sandoz with the heparin tragedy, right? At that point, I realized you really need a bunch of people to either die or go to hospital together for the signal to be detected. If that number is not crossed, you will never detect it. And in that case, it was about 100 children dying in a short period for the signal to be detected. The product met all its specifications, correct? Because we test for what we look for. It passes all specification, and yet children were dying. From St. Louis, Missouri, that's where the report started coming on. There was impurity was chondroitin sulfate, which we never had an assay for. So the whole mindset of testing to document quality is to test what you're looking for. And here, without proper understanding and the messy chemistry that you have, anything can come through. Here is 99+% pure, is by design.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I know when I said, look, this is a data machine. This is a way to capture all the data throughout the process as we're designing the routes for the medicine. We're following every bit of guidance that we can, but then being able to capture with sensors, the probes that we've inserted, more data, be able to say if there's an anomaly, we can shut down the process, analyze it, study it, restart, reboot, clean, then go back at it again, and then continue to improve our process. And as we've done that now over years, now we're at the stage where now what is those actionable data points that the FDA is looking for? Because I do remember in one of the meetings, it was like one group within the company is like, look, we don't need that data. Another group would say, well, we don't need that data. And another group is, we don't need that data. And it's like, no, we actually need all the data because when we go to package it, we have to then break it down in a specific way. So let's capture and use as much sensors and as many probes to be able to understand everything about the process that we possibly can. And I'm not even just talking about manufacturing of the molecules through the STT reactor. It's also then coming out what's going on inside the environment of the manufacturing clean room that we produce and attaching sensors in there. The workers that come into the facility, the workers as they're in the facility, we're tracking as much data as we possibly can. So we know with as much certainty that we've done nothing from a human standpoint to affect the medicine that we make.
Right. Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, and tracking all this data, I'm sure, is like a mammoth effort, right, on its own to have it be certifiable, auditable. We just literally got back from a symposium on decentralized science, decentralized systems. Can you guys touch a little bit on how you're involving a decentralized approach to what you're building and using decentralized technology, really?
Well, I think that's another part where I said, started with the data. So the machine learning models then to be able to extract that data throughout the entirety of the process. It's one of our colleagues that we brought in as one of the subcontractors, Gianluca Di Novo, with his company, was saying, okay, we have a need, and really got Ajaz excited about this, was proof of trust. So to say, great, we have the data. This is what it is that data immutable? And Ajaz has told us plenty of stories where the data can be tampered with quite a bit. So from our standpoint, using blockchain was something that was very attractive because we say we have to a highest degree of certainty that our process, our data coming off of the reactor, we're very confident. And so let's make it an immutable record. Let's utilize the tools and have proof of trust for the patient. They deserve that.
Wow, fascinating. So in other words, you guys have started to really use blockchain as a foundational layer to build trust in that data and be able to not just make sense out of the data, but so it's actually certifiable and very fascinating.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a lot of companies out there that can say that are starting to, use the blockchain for that. So that's very impressive.
Well, I think there are companies out there
Yeah.
who may want to do that.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that as we've evolved as a company, and then as we watch, the emergence of machine learning and AI embedded into all things that we do, the cost of it going down, the ability and the use case makes using technology much more practical. FDA is recognizing that, so we're trying to match always where their guidance is, while at the same time, as we're moving that, my belief was from a D-side community, as I love tracking what a lot of these cutting edge scientists are doing, and especially the younger generation, is their ability to take their molecule, let's say an AI drug discovered molecule, and Michael and I will talk about this quite a bit. At some point, you're going to have to make that molecule. You're going to have to find a manufacturer or a lab that's going to be able to have all of the equipment, all of the very highly trained and very expensive personnel to make that molecule. And so you go from rapid AI drug discovery to rapid AI drug development. And we want to see it go from AI discovery to development to approval, and do everything, regulatory approval, everything possible to make that data as transparent as every one of the constituencies need them. But it's wonderful that so much money has been poured into trying to cure diseases. You're still going to have to make the molecule. And that's where we believe that our company can be well positioned as we get more people in the community, the science community, to understand, hey, there's a new type of way to manufacture your molecule. We want to engage with that, take that unstructured data, and we've done it several times where we had many, many hits on a potential cure for an orphan rare disease, and then being able to break it down in a way, determine what the route possibly could be, put it through our system. And it was very fortunate where one of the orphan rare diseases, it was a previously approved drug. And that previously approved drug was no longer being manufactured in Japan. And so that patient group, from word of mouth, ended up from Japan to Australia, got to us and said, can you please make this molecule because our children need this for a disease called Voorhees disease. So we came up with some routes. We were very fortunate that time we had a grant, so we were able to say, look, this is the perfect use case to be able to say you have a patient need, but the size of a facility to be able to normally manufacture, it's out of scope for them. They would lose too much money, so they don't want to do it. But the fact is there's still people, children, that need this drug. So the small footprint, the skill sets that we have, and not needing all the overhead, we're able to take on a product like that, be able to get it manufactured, and then send it over to the researchers, get the formulation, and then now potentially, provide these people the medicine that they need. And we really firmly believe we using the types of technologies that are available now, we can be much more efficient, lower the cost of drug discovery, drug development, and I think that's definitely going to hit price as well.
Right. Yeah, well said. I mean, the value of your guys' approach and the sustainability aspect is clear. I guess the question that I'm thinking about is, why did you guys go with Circular's layer 1 blockchain? There's a lot of chains out there. What stood out to you from that blockchain specifically? Is there a piece of compliance or regulatory, level of acumen that stood out from their blockchain compared to others?
It's built from ground up. The ability to certify the blockchain itself is likely to be a very important regulatory question, right? So if you go on other ledgers and so forth, they have a long legacy. How do you validate that?
Okay, so it was more the blockchain, like the ability to use a layer 1 is what appealed to you guys.
Use a blockchain which is certifiable right now and will need to be certified as we go along is one of the key regulatory requirements.
Because I imagine for different types of I know we're in this category of small molecule generic drugs.
Doesn't matter. It applies to everywhere.
Yeah, it applies to, but each of those drugs have their own set of regulations and compliance needs, right? Depending on the therapeutic area.
They're classified differently, but the way I approach that is first principles. what are the first principles of the legal and regulatory provisions based on? First, do no harm, right? I mean, that's how it starts. And the U.S., I like the FD&C Act very much because it holds a lot of wisdom, which we seem to have lost since 1984, is what I sense. One of the best things that happened with that law was the 1962 Kaifa-Harris amendments, which brought in the whole scientific basis for that. Was the phrase in the law in 1962 that was inserted was effectiveness is necessary decision that we have to make during development, not efficacy. Right? Effectiveness happens in the real world. So those who make the decision on effectiveness need to do that fairly and responsibly, okay, is the word. And for that, they should have the right scientific training and education. Those are the exact words from the law, correct? And then that's when the law also included the provision of adulteration. If you don't do what you say you're going to do, you're adulterating. It doesn't matter whether the product is adulterated or not, as long as you have adulterated your thought and your evidence, your whole product is adulterated. That's what the principle is based on.
Yeah, it all comes around. Yeah.
It's intention.
Right.
Enforcement, you can't probe intention, you go towards observation and behavior, but the premise of the law is based on intention.
And I think that was, a part of the selection was when Jean-Luc and I had began talking about it, and we're thinking about all the layers and CFR 11 requirement, 2111 requirements that we have. As we were moving through this, a technology that understood it, and Jean-Luc understood that well enough that that was one of our requirements, was willing to work with us as we were developing the process. And I think the other part of it was he has a large network of pharmacists in Italy that are very interested in utilizing it. And that's something that was from getting a product into market. Often your touch point with the local pharmacist is different in Europe, but we're very much hoping to do a more direct from manufacturer to hospital system pharmacy business model. And we think that proof of trust becomes very, very important.
Yeah, and I know this is like emerging technology, and we spoke all about it at the symposium, but the sky's the limit for applications of L1s, and you guys are clearly early adopters to that, so it's very, very impressive work.
Well, and the other thing, what we heard at the conference was also the ability of the payer, and as you go through the payment system and tracking from the insurance system. I mean, really being able to connect into other chains, and the interoperability was also, a strong appeal as well.
Right. Yeah, we're literally building this like L1, and there's still other L2s, L3s. If you look at other blockchains, it's very common to see that. So I'm sure that's to come. Yeah. So Ajaz, where do you see this headed? Like, what does the future look like to you with these technologies and that we're talking about?
The rate at which the problems are coming our way to solve is we really have no choice but to aggressively adopt new technology to solve the problems we are facing right now. And I think what Bright Path has done is taken the set of technologies that in an integrated manner to apply to a problem of generic drugs, abbreviated new drug application, in such a way that they are at the cusp of essentially changing the paradigm, bringing manufacturing back to US, clean, more control, predictable, increased assurance. And it's happening at a time when the nation needs it urgently. The geopolitical challenges that we face really say that if we don't do this aggressively, if we step back, we will be held hostage because all essential drugs, we depend on somebody else. Correct? So we have this solution in place, and I think FDA has also stepped up to the plate with advanced manufacturing technology guidance being finalized. They have emergency technology team engaging, and I think we are at the cusp of changing the generic drug paradigm. As I talked about in the conference here was, at the moment, the legacy generic applications have not focused on this level of control, this level of purity, and this level of reproducibility, and this level of assurance of data. So in that sense, the AMT designation that FDA will go through and officially do allows us to have a distinct aspect in what FDA calls the Orange Book, which is the therapeutic equivalence listing, and we can have an AMT designation. I think that will address the communication needs, transparent communication to the public. Also, in times of emergency, you also have a way to bring a product to the patient as early as possible, and at the same time also have the same quality assurance for a commercial product. So that's what we have done here. So,
Yeah. Kind of what you were saying earlier about the speed of discovery too.
Yeah.
But the speed of discovery, that I think is very important, where you're discovering a new drug for a urgent need and bringing it to the patient early. Here you're looking at a national need for the entire population.
True.
Yeah, and I can think of a case right now and use the drug. We're based in Mesa, Arizona, and we would see, and we have seen billboards popping up over the last month around naloxone, and it's commonly known as Narcan.
Yep.
And there is a supply chain issue with that product. So a customer came to us and said, "Can you solve this? This is a drug that we can make. We know the routes. We know how to develop it. Michael, take a look at it. But this is one of those. If something happens to that one single source manufacturer, that's got a huge impact across everybody in this country. So it may not even be necessarily a new indication, but just a common one because we've over relied on just one source. And I think this is one of the great opportunities for us to put it all together and solve a problem before it can get much worse."
Yeah. No, it's very fascinating work, and want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining the Around the Block special episode today. And we'll make sure to link the Bright Path website in the comments below, so others can check out the work you guys are doing. And thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.